Representative Vang, would you like to move that House File 2279 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill?
Yes, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Representative Vang, I believe you have two authors' amendments. Would you like to move the A1 amendment first and explain it briefly?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The A1 amendment is a technical amendment. It was identified by nonpartisan staff, and so, yeah, I hope that committees will accept the amendment.
Representative Vang moves the A1 amendment to get the bill in the form the author would like. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion prevails. The A1 amendment is adopted. Representative Vang, you also have the A2 author's amendment. Would you like to move the A2 amendment and explain it briefly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the A2 amendment. This amendment is also technical too as well. It's just aligning, changing the name digital equity to digital opportunity, aligning federal language to ensure that there's alignment on that, and then it deletes policy language to establish a new grant program, which this bill doesn't have any funding, and so it deletes that new grant program establishment policy language. And I hope the committee will accept it.
Are there any questions on the A2 amendment? Representative Vang moves the A2 amendment to get the bill in the form the author would like. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion prevails. The A2 amendment is adopted. Representative Vang, to the bill as amended.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, the state and federal government are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into broadband infrastructure systems in Minnesota. High-speed internet access is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity for homeowners and businesses. The majority of these resources are being allocated into parts of the state where it is harder and more expensive to run fiber or cables to homes and businesses, namely in rural areas. I believe that is an important investment for our outstate areas and the people who live there. However, it is often overlooked that there are also large pockets of more developed areas that are also unserved and underserved, either due to lack of infrastructure or due to affordability reasons. For instance, in my county, in Hennepin County, approximately 25% of households now have access to quality, affordable, high-speed internet service. Some of the most underserved areas are in the western, more rural part of the county, where it is difficult to obtain rights of way to bury fiber optic lines, and ISPs do not have good coverage with cell service or 5G Wi-Fi. Conversely, many multifamily housing units in urban areas do not have apartments wired for cable or satellite hookups, and when they do, it is cost prohibitive for many residents. And so this bill seeks to address some of the concerns and reflects the expanded mission of deprogramming. It renames the Office of Broadband to include digital opportunity, which reflects a broader focus and brings it into line with the plans the federal government has approved for the Department Digital Opportunity Plan. And the bill makes other slight programmatic changes to expand the responsibility of the Office of Broadband. It modifies state goals to include not just access, but also broadband adoption and affordability, update grants criteria to ensure funding is directed towards unserved and underserved areas in both rural and low-income urban communities, requires an annual report on progress being made, and updates some terminology to provide clarity on how resources are being deployed. These changes will result in better high-speed internet access, broadband adoption, and affordability across this entire state. And with me today is my testifier, Mika, to highlight the need for this legislation. And thank you, and I ask for your support.
Mika Bear, Hennepin County Office of Broadband and Digital Inclusion. Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hansen and members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. With me also is Phil Essington, Hennepin County's Director of Broadband and Digital Inclusion, for any technical questions. My name is Mika Bear, and I'm a lifelong resident of Minnesota. I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Winona County and now live in the city of Minneapolis. I'm here to speak in strong support of House File 2279. This is about making sure that every Minnesotan, regardless of where they live, has the resources that they need to succeed. My parents, who are dairy farmers, face significant obstacles in keeping up with modern agricultural practices due to the lack of high-speed internet. As a student, I struggled with limited internet access, making it difficult to connect with teachers and classmates and to fully participate in the educational opportunities that other students in urban areas had. When broadband finally came to our area, it didn't just make things easier, it changed everything. It gave me the chance to pursue an education that I wouldn't have had without it. I took online courses and was able to engage with resources that were previously out of reach. Broadband gave me the opportunity to become the first person in my family to earn a college degree and then a graduate degree while being able to continue participating in my family's homestead. Broadband allowed my parents to integrate technology into their farming operations, improving efficiency and sustainability. Modern dairy farming relies on digital tools for everything from herd health monitoring to climate forecasting. Reliable broadband internet was as vital for my parents to manage their farm operations more effectively, keeping their small family farm competitive and viable. I now live in Minneapolis, where high-speed internet is often assumed to be a given, but the reality is that many residents still struggle with access. Whether due to affordability, outdated infrastructure, or the lack of digital skills, as of just a few years ago, as much as 25% of Hennepin County households did not have access to high-speed internet. I've seen my neighbors struggle to apply for jobs online, parents parking outside of libraries to get their kids connected to Wi-Fi for homework, and small business owners lose out on opportunities because their internet service was unreliable or too expensive. Broadband is essential in my own work and engagement in public life, and I need a reliable connection to attend virtual meetings, research policy, and to engage with community partners. It's what keeps Hennepin County running, from public health services to access to telehealth to workforce development programs, and without it, we risk leaving people behind and widening economic disparities, making it harder for our communities to compete in a modern economy. The DEED Digital Opportunity Plan focuses on broadband connections for veterans, people living in rural areas, people with disabilities, have language barriers, people of color, older adults, and people of low incomes or those who have completed a term of incarceration. This bill more closely aligns DEED's OBD with that plan. This is important because we need to build more broadband, and we need to ensure that Minnesotans get connected to broadband and get connected on a real computer, not just complete tasks on a smartphone. Lastly, the bill requires an updated annual report provided to this committee that includes the progress made on these goals. There are no financial obligations as part of this bill. It merely codifies the state's published goals as we look to our friends at DEED to continue their good work building broadband and creating digital opportunity for all Americans. Thank you for your time and consideration in support of this bill.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify for or against the bill? Any questions from members on the bill? Representative Burkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Vang. I'm curious, I totally understand the idea of making sure everybody has broadband, but are there other forms of internet access that might be more well-served rather than fiber? I'm just wondering if there's another way to do this that you have thought of, maybe.
Representative Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I might have another testifier named Phil who might be able to provide more of the technical.
Thank you.
Please come forward. And state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. I'm Phil Essington. I'm the director of the Hennepin County Department of Broadband and Digital Inclusion. Thank you for the question. I agree. I think there are a lot of different technologies available, and this is a very quickly changing and evolving landscape where what may work today is fiber, and in the future may be others. I think you may be referring to low Earth orbit technologies, and those are certainly in play for certain residents too.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Burkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only reason I bring that up is because I live in such a rural district. That last mile of fiber, a lot of people have a mile-long driveway where I live, and getting that, you're not really served if it runs by your driveway and you're a mile away. And so I'm just curious if there's been conversations about that, just in the big picture about maybe accessing another way. It's just relevant to where I live too.
To the testifier.
Absolutely, Chair and Representative. I think, I guess a couple of thoughts. We support the bill because we think that drilling fiber isn't enough for getting all Minnesotans connected. And as diverse a state as we have, there will be different options that suit different folks. And so it's not a build it and they will come situation, to your point about building fiber down the street, not necessarily helping a house that's a long way from the street. As we see the bill, it's intended to have outreach and support and training to help folks adopt internet, whatever that technology may be.
Representative Nelson and then Representative Gander.
Thank you, Chair Hansen and Representative Vang. As I'm looking through this, I see on lines 3.27, well, before that, we're looking at broadband adoption, and I think that was, the kind of the goal of the broadband, what the whole department is. But I see the, computer access and things like that, and it's kind of greatly expanding outside of what I think broadband deployment is. And I'm just wondering if we could hear, I see Ms. Mackey is here, and if we could get a comment on, or, what are the thoughts on, because I think the goals of, developing broadband, when you start adding computer access and digital skills, I think you're greatly expanding the scope of really what that is, and how does that affect federal funding that I've heard may be in question? How does that affect this?
Representative Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I will defer to Director Mackey to respond.
Ms. Mackey, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative. So I think one thing we should remember is Minnesota is currently part of the Digital Equity Act, which is the $12 million. I think I came and spoke a little bit about this earlier in the session. And so part of that was to create a digital equity plan, which we call Digital Opportunity Plan. And those goals within that are defined within the scope of this bill about adoption, about connecting people to devices, connecting people to information and people to people. So certainly our goal with infrastructure is to get to the end goal of adoption.
Representative Gander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the lines of Rep. Burkle's question, if it comes by your door and it's a mile from your home, that's really not a connection. Then my question is, and maybe everyone in the room knows it but me, to folks who have, economic constraints, do we fund their internet service into their home on a monthly basis? Do we cover the monthly service? If so, do we have some kind of minimum level of service that we will provide? Some speed of internet service versus, some of the higher tiers of internet? How do we do that? How do we make sure they can afford the monthly fee, and what service do they get for that fee?
Ms. Mackey or Representative Vang?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative. So I think, to be clear, our job historically is to be able to get one good provider in every location in Minnesota. That's the infrastructure. We do not currently have a program that helps with the subsidy for low-income households. Now, some providers do offer that. What was out there, especially during COVID, was the Affordable Connectivity Program, which was a federal program that had a subsidy there. During the time that it was used in Minnesota, we had about a third of the residents who were eligible enrolled in that program, and it was about $5 million a month in subsidy that the state did receive through that program. But currently, the state itself does not have a program.
Very good.
Representative Gander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone else with any questions? Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Vang, for bringing this forward. Not a question, but a comment. Really appreciate the work that you put into here. And I think, just to this discussion, why we're focusing on broadband is that the state of Minnesota in 2023, I believe, was allocated just a little bit north of $650 million for broadband development. So I think that's why the discussion is here, where we're seeing all this money coming in from the federal government. How are we going to roll it out? And around the piece around like the devices and whatnot, I would encourage members, if you go to the Office of Broadband, mapping devices right now, you may look at, the city of Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, where I represent with Representative Bajay, that it seems like we're being served, but we're still having connectivity issues. And so I think that's why we need to broaden this to really look at how do we connect families to devices and to be able to even just operate the internet so that they could, live their life, help them, their kids, with schoolwork, get access to school, healthcare. I think that's one of the big issues for a lot of our community members in urban areas where they don't have transportation options for them to be able to get their healthcare services. So oftentimes they have to do it virtually. And so I really appreciate you expanding the bill so that we could really have a more in-depth conversation about how do we address the digital need in the state of Minnesota, whether that's through broadband or through connectivities and the different funding streams that's coming to us through the federal government. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Vang. Representative Jacob.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. So out in the rural area, speeds vary greatly. So what kind of speed do you consider to be served, and what speed is considered not served?
Representative Vang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Director Maki will have the best answer to this. I think there are some federal guidelines about what is the speed that residents should get.
Director Maki.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the question, Representative. So as statutory goals for 2026 for Minnesota to be eligible for our program and considered served, it's 100 by 20. Unserved is 25 by 3. And so those are the served and unserved threshold. Now remember, when our grants are awarded to grantees, that has to be scalable. So they have to build 100 by 20 at a minimum, and that has to be scalable.
Representative Jacob.
So is fiber, is that really the only option to provide that? I know in our area, a lot of tower to tower.
Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative. I am also in your county and also on fixed wireless. So fiber is obviously the most long-term reliable, has the latency and longevity. However, we are technology agnostic. So if a grantee does apply for our program and can meet those speed goals, then they would be eligible for our program. As such, when we're talking about BEAD, we have to get one provider everywhere, so everyone needs to be unserved and underserved served. And that's going to probably take a mix of technologies in order to meet the number that we have that are eligible for BEAD and that we are required to serve in Minnesota.
Any other questions? Vang.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the committee for your time and for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Representative Vang renews her motion that House File 2279, as amended, be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. The bill is laid over.